We spend a lot of time telling our kids not to fight. Well, today we're with Brendon Boates, and we're going to talk about fighting for our kids with the local MMA legend, at least for old guys like me. Hey, welcome back to The Art of Fatherhood. I'm Brian LaFauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
And we are joined today by local fighting legend. You like that? I always want to be introduced
Not
like
very
that.
legendary.
Look, Brendon Boates, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Thank you.
Psyched to have you here. All right, so let's start right out the gate with, before we get into the fatherhood piece of this, which we are going to spend most time talking about, you got a fight coming up, and let's get into it with, why don't you tell us about that?
March 30th, I'll be fighting for my fourth amateur fight for Cage Titans down in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Really excited about it. Don't know why in my 40s I'm still doing this, but it's fun. I enjoy it. This one I'm doing for my friend Tim. My last fight I did for another friend of mine who's very sick with cancer. This one's for my friend Tim, fellow soccer coach who had a stroke on the sideline a couple years ago. Tim's got 4 kids, so he's a dad too. So we're doing this one to raise money for him.
Love it. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I was at your last fight.
We are sponsoring the local legend.
Yeah.
Apparently, we're sponsoring. I like when I find this stuff out in mid.
Blunt Force Business will be sponsoring.
By the way,
local
what a
legend.
great way to. What a great way. By the way, going back to our business podcast, right? We're going to break really quick. What a great contract law that is. A recorded commitment must hold up, right? In a court of law, you'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's we got the video. We committed to it.
Can we make up with a new price on the recording?
Yeah.
Too?
Let's while we're recording now. Why don't you start haggling for how much we're sponsoring on that? No, but it was awesome. It was that venue in Plymouth. What do they call the place again?
Memorial Hall.
Memorial Hall was so cool. And you walk in and you're like, this is absolutely fucking perfect.
It is impressive when you think it's like you don't know. I had no idea what I was walking into the first time I went in there. I didn't go to see the last one. But you have no idea what you're walking into, and it's like they do a professional job, and then it's the arena
setup.
too. It's like the Coliseum.
Unbelievable.
It's like straight, everything's straight up.
Yep.
All looking down on the fighters.
When they said hall, I originally was like, all right, this might be a little ghetto.
Yeah, you think it's like the Elks.
It was, It was the exact opposite. It was awesome. Great time. The fights were unbelievable. The amateur fights were better than the pro fights at the end. Yeah. The guys were just battled, and you're so close, and it's just a great venue. So we wish you luck.
Appreciate it.
You had a nice win last time. We'll be there again. This time.
How long you fought? How long total?
Well, the last one was
been?
disappointing because I went the distance. I was not very happy about that. It was good because it allowed me to do that and go the full 3 rounds. But you don't get I don't get paid at all. But you don't get paid by the hour, right? So the first 2 I think the first 2 were combined 2.5 minutes total.
Just in case he won both those. Fights.
Yeah. Well, I won all 3. Yeah. But the last one was the full amateurs fight 3-minute round, so it was the full 9 minutes. So I was a little disappointed in that part of it, but it was good to at least experience the full 3 rounds or whatever. But I was not in very good shape, unfortunately. So
your cardio looked good. I will tell you. How you're feeling. That's always interesting when fighters talk about a post-fight and what they're feeling in the fight and what you pick up on when you watch and what you don't pick up on.
Yeah.
And I at the end of that, I felt as a spectator, I felt the exact opposite, where I was like, he looked like he could go through 9 more minutes, and you didn't look gassed.
Yeah, you gotta try to hide it, right?
Yeah,
you can't. The end of the second round I got tired, and the third round I knew that I had won the first 2, so I kind of coasted, which you shouldn't do, to kind of not be completely exhausted.
Yep.
But a lot of it too was I lost so much weight for that one. I lost 30 pounds in 30 days. So
you were small.
It was too much.
Lean on that one.
So it wasn't even the weight cut; it was the training. I didn't train properly because I was exhausted. I would go to practice, I'd eat 600 calories in a day, right?
Yep,
and then I'd just be dead.
Yep.
This time I don't have to do that, so I think that's part of it. But we'll make sure that the cardio.
Are you fighting at the same weight class?
No, this one's at 160 pounds, which for me is a piece of cake. That one was 145. So yeah,
I can't remember the last time I weighed 145 pounds.
Well, I weighed 145 pounds for about an hour,
second.
But I think when I got in the cage, I was 167. But weigh-ins was 45. But yeah, that's too right now we're 175. So yeah, 160 is a piece of cake.
One of the really interesting things about the local MMA circuit is I've You've had 4 fights. I've only been to 1. The first time I was going, I can't remember. Was I there at the first one?
No, it got postponed.
Yeah, but
remember?
I went though.
No, you didn't. You went. You were away. Something happened. You were going, but then it got postponed. So
Right, but no, I went. Did I go on the night the fight was supposed to be?
Yes, yeah, you went to. Yeah, I didn't fight.
Right,
Yes, but
yeah. So it's like all this crazy shit happens.
Right. Yeah, my
Right.
idiot opponent screwed it up, so he had to bail on that one, so it got postponed.
How did he screw up? What did he do?
He's a known moron in the Northeast MMA scene. So basically, what happened was he took a fight like 2 weeks before our fight, and he lost it in some sort of weird thing with the commission in New York. They sort of suspended him for 30 days or whatever it was, so he couldn't fight again when we fought. So it got postponed to 3 weeks later, and then they suspended him even further because I guess he tried to pull some other weird stuff or whatever. But yeah, he's one of those people that is screwy. And then when I did eventually fight him the night that you went, he missed weight by 11 pounds. So he's just one of those guys.
It was crazy because I was supposed to go to the fight.
Well, he's
obviously,
close. I mean, 11 pounds.
Yeah.
So
You know the next day
just
you're in.
right there.
I mean, he's over here like
Yeah.
starving himself to get to
Right.
145.
I'd be so pissed.
Yeah.
I'd be so mad.
Yeah. Well, the
that would
funniest-
be the most frustrating part of the whole thing. It's all
exactly.
because you got there. You know.
The funniest part about that whole story was he came to weigh-ins when we did fight, drinking an extra large iced coffee. And I'm like, geez, he looks a little thick. So my teammate went over to watch him weigh in, weighs in 11 pounds over. And then usually, like, if you're close, you strip everything off, right? He's 11 pounds over. He takes his underwear off. So he's standing completely naked. I'm like, you thought your underwear were going to weigh 11 pounds? Like, why are you standing naked in the middle of this room right now? So yeah, he's just a goof. But yeah, so we beat him. That's fine.
So I was away. I missed the first fight, and I was only away because it was like a snowstorm. Like a snowstorm came in when I was supposed to fly. So I missed the first fight. I was really, really pissed. And then I think I went to the second fight.
Yes, you went when I fought that guy who I was supposed to fight.
And then this other one, this last one that you went to, it was just a weekend that I had. It was just a random. He was just like, "Oh, I'm fighting." I was like, "Freaking!" I had a weekend away that weekend.
Yeah, I think you were
too.
away. It was in July, so yeah.
Right.
Which is a shame. But it's interesting. It's interesting to watch.
We'll be there on March 30th. Though.
My friend just kicked the shit out of some guy that he's
Hopefully.
20 years older than.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the other interesting thing about my friend Brendon over here is we're the same. We're all pretty close in age. Brendon and I were in the same grade, and I've tried to play soccer recently. And you know how you read about like the 80-year-old dudes playing pickleball and like tearing some shit? Like it's happened to me. I'm playing pickleball. I mean, soccer may be a little bit more active than pickleball. I don't know much about pickleball, but
It's a little more explosive. So
I think I tore my
you know.
Achilles tendon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean,
like this guy's freaking 9 minutes with a guy 20 years younger than him.
Yeah.
In a freaking fist kick fight.
yeah, you risk a lot. You know, you definitely risk a lot of breaks, a lot of breaks, a lot of tears. Which I'm sure is your biggest concern every time. It's like,
Yeah, I'm not afraid of the other guy.
I don't care if I
fighting to hit me,
lose. You don't want to lose, but you don't want to break something or tear something.
Exactly.
Those two things are the things that we're trying to.
Not afraid of him hurting me. I'm afraid of me hurting myself.
Right.
That's it,
Yeah.
The one night I finally did get to see Brendon, the one thing that was interesting was that he was not the oldest fighter on the card.
That's true. That
The
day
night
I
I went,
wasn't.
there was
You're
a guy
right.
who was
Yeah.
50.
Yeah. No, it's John Payne. John's actually almost 60 now, so he's like 58.
Okay, yeah. And he won, right? Did he win the fight?
He did win. Yeah, he fought a guy that actually was a teammate of the guy that I was fighting. Yeah, John's a good dude. He's like a firefighter in Salem or something like that. But he's he actually cross train at the gym that he goes to normally. So I see him every so often. But he's trying to fight on this card too. I don't think they found him a fight yet. But they actually offered him a guy on my team, and then the promoter suggested I fight him. I'm like, no, I only fight young dudes. So I'm not fighting the other.
I mean,
guy.
you don't want to lose to the freaking 50-something year old,
yeah,
right?
that's
yeah,
like-
yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
But make no mistake, Brendon is usually the
Usually,
so
yeah.
the
If
oldest
John's
guy
not on this
in
card,
there.
I'll be the oldest. Yeah.
So the question then begs
stuff.
to be asked: how does one at 47,
Not yet, almost.
46, going to be 47? I'm 46. You 47? Mm-hmm. Ryan's Gen Z.
Just
So,
missed.
Yeah,
Just-
he's Gen Z.
yeah.
We're Gen X. But how does one get to your age? When was your first fight? How old were you?
44.
Okay, so that's I think unusual,
Yeah,
probably
just
to,
over 2 years ago.
to some people. So how did we get to the point where we're having our first competitive MMA fight at age?
Yeah, it was mostly
44.
stupidity, but it was my kids were the real reason. Not that I was trying to motivate them. But my sons started training, doing MMA, doing jiu-jitsu, and all that stuff when they were 7 and 9, respectively. I wanted my daughter to go, but she refused. So watching them do it, and I've always been a fan, and our friend Alex that we watched growing up fight, I brought them to the gym where he started because I knew the owner. But watching them do that and get good at it, I legitimately, one, wanted to get in shape, but two, just basically said to myself, like, if I don't start doing this when they're teenagers, they're going to beat the crap out of me. And I didn't want my sons to tell me to do the chores. That's legitimately why I did it. I can't have my kids be better at me. As a dad, that's your only recourse, right? When they get big, is I'll kick your ass. But so I was like, I had to start training. So I never wanted to fight. Never, was too old. Had no intention of fighting. Went in, started training, did a couple grappling tournaments. Just no one's kicking you or punching you doing that. So I did that. And then during COVID, actually during the lockdowns, I got sick, not with COVID. That scared me a little bit, but I sat with my wife and I basically told her, I want to have one fight. And she said, "You're stupid." And she's not wrong. It's ridiculous when you're in your 40s to start thinking about that. But I said, I just want to do it once, one time, just to get it out of the way. So I signed up. Coach said, okay. We found an opponent, made sense. And then it turned into a second fight only because that guy dropped out when he decided, he pissed me off so badly that I said, okay, I fought his teammate, beat that guy up, and I said, I still got to fight this guy. So then I did that second one, and that was it. So now it's at the point where I get the itch, but I'm only doing it if it's for a reason. So last time I did it for John, who was sick with cancer. This time for Tim, who had a stroke. So now if I fight again, it has to be for some reason other than just fighting, just to fight. Because again, amateurs don't get paid. I don't get any money for it.
Right.
You get paid a percentage of your ticket sales, which is what I donate to John, donate to Tim. And then sponsorships help offset my costs where I can give more money to those guys. But so that's the story basically. That's how it all came to
Brendon
fruition.
and I grew up playing soccer together at probably 14 or 15.
Yeah, 14, I think.
Yeah. So we played on a team. We were kind of like we were the miscast. We were like the outcast team. And
good players, but like the least organized group of humans.
And one of the guys, Alex Karalexis, if you follow Art of Fatherhood and also UFC from the early 2000s or whatever.
Very first Ultimate Fighter season.
Yeah, so Alex Karalexis was in the UFC for a hot second, did very well for himself. But we would be in just a normal game of soccer, just the normalest game of the ball's going from here to here, some pretty good players, and then just out of nowhere, referee would make a bad call. Before you know it, Alex is challenging him to a fight in the freaking in the parking lot.
Forgetting what sport we're playing.
It wouldn't even always be the players. It'd be the parents, the ref, whoever. That's my favorite Alex story, actually. Not even, he didn't fight, but the one you're talking about. The ref sent him off, and he went crazy and wanted to fight him, and they tried to get him to leave, and he sat on his cooler in the corner of the field and just told the ref, I'm going to wait for you, and kick the shit out of you in the parking lot.
At that point, we were 17 or 18.
Yeah, right around 18. Yeah,
So we watched Alex fight. You were better friends with Alex than I was, but we followed his.
Yeah, we lived next town over from each other.
Followed his career, and then I think we were all there's a period because you do some jiu-jitsu training.
Yeah.
Right. I think we all kind of
very entry level.
Well, all of us kind of there's got to be an age range. Gen X.
Yeah.
Older Gen Z. I mean, older millennials.
Yeah.
Who all kind of grew up when the UFC was becoming a thing, and now we're all we all listen to podcasts. We're freaking Mark Zuckerberg is doing jujitsu. And we're all freaking in that ballpark range.
But I don't think that's just because it's generational. I think we get smarter and in everything, as a society, we get smart. And one thing about jiu-jitsu, I've done a lot of the different other martial arts. I was telling you, Mike Campbell's here. And So I would do striking training with him once a week when we were here. And I would do jiu-jitsu over at Triforce with those guys. And but the beauty of jiu-jitsu, I did Krav for a little while. Mm-hmm. And what I hated about it, and I fucking hated Krav. I was like, this is stupid. Not because the discipline is stupid, but because you can't do anything to a full execution in what they're teaching you. Nothing. Everything is to really hurt someone and, crush their aorta and, or stomp their eyeball out. So when you go through Krav, it'd be like, okay, then boop. What the fuck is that? But jiu-jitsu, what makes jiu-jitsu great is, one, it's a great exercise. And striking training is great too, but even in that, And I would train with my buddy Pete, you know Pete, and Mike would train us, and then we would kind of spar. But even then, you're going like you.
Yeah, it's not 100%.
No, because if you're gonna hurt. But with jiu-jitsu, you almost can bring it to the closest to 100% without any intent of hurting anyone, right? Especially if the other guy's a little good. It's usually the people that aren't that good hurt you because they just go fucking like ape. And they like, when you get the new people, they're the ones that scare me because they just are, everything's energy and they're just doing stuff. They don't know what they're doing. And that's when you get hurt. But you can go as close to a real fight and then it's over. Like right there. All right, stop. And so that's what's great about it. Great exercise, and it's the most realistic fighting you can do. So I think that's why. I don't think it's going away. I don't see anything coming in. And when the Jeffries brothers, who own Triforce, talked to me about when they started fighting. Peter especially, like Keith was a striker. We're a jiu-jitsu guy, but a really good striker. Peter's he's grown their jiu-jitsu program. And he was like, I taught myself all this shit. Like 90% of it, back when we were young.
Yeah, the guys back then reading books and videos.
Yeah, like Gracie was a thing at that point in time, but it wasn't, you couldn't get it. So now the training's phenomenal. There's good trainers almost everywhere, right? And guys like us who are older and your kids can all do it together. Right, it's like a big jiu-jitsu orgy, right? But but it's cool because so many people bring their kids.
Oh, absolutely.
But you started. It's funny. I think it's interesting how you started because you started opposite of what the way you and I approach it, which is I want to get my kids into it, and your kids got you into it, and then you ended up taking it like, yeah, sure, I'll come along, and now I'll surpass you with it.
Yeah. I've surpassed them sort of. Like I can beat them up now because I'm a man and they're boys. But my 14-year-old standing can beat me, and I can beat him on the ground only because I outweigh him significantly. But skill wise, it's not even close.
That's fantastic.
By next year, like if we had a proper fight, he would win.
And so I think for our listeners too, most of the people, if they're listening to our podcast, they're parent, right? And they're viewing it from. And I think what's cool about what we're talking about here is how do you view teaching fighting with your kids? Because like I'll tell a quick story, and then I'd love to get your take on it. I had this moment. 2 days ago, my son came home from work, right? And he was just in a bad mood. I could see it like as soon as he came in. He was just shitty mood, right? I'm like, what's up? He didn't say anything. He went to bed. So the next morning he comes down. I'm like, what is the deal? What happened last night? My son's 14. He works in the kitchen and washes dishes. That's enough to make you in a fucking bad mood right off the gate. But I'm like, what happened? He's like, yeah, the supervisor was being a douche and this other kid who's he's a freshman. The other kid is, I think, a junior or senior in his high school. He's like, he works in the kitchen too. And he's like, he had a towel and he wouldn't stop whipping me. And I'm like, what'll make him stop whipping you is if you first tell him, listen, all right, enough. I get it was fun, but stop. And then if you whip me one more time, I'm gonna break your nose. And then because now as a dad, I'm getting like angry that someone was fucking with him. And then I'm like, and then go tell your boss. You don't gotta be like a towel. Just say, hey, just want to let you know, if he whips me with that towel one more time, I'm gonna break his nose, right? But then you walk away and like, shit, is that really the best advice? But I teeter on it. I think in cases like that, it is good advice. Like you don't want him to do that all the time. But if it gets, people have to be able to, we want our kids to be able to joke around, have fun, blah, blah, and not be the douche that is always looking to fight. But also, like, if someone's getting to the point where, like, they're really hurting you and you're asking them to stop and it continues, at what point in time do you say, you know what, I'm not going to be mad at you? He's like, but then I'll lose my job. I'm like, well, I got you that one. I'll get you another one.
Well, being a parent is so freaking, one of the ways that being a parent's weird. Just watching your kid struggle with something. And I've watched, my kid is, my biological child, he's 9, but like, he's a little bit bigger and stronger than a lot of the other kids. And so like, a lot of kids just bounce off him. It's very difficult. Some of the uber athletes even will have trouble getting him to the grounds because he's just freaking strong. Like he's strong and big. He's a year older than a lot of them. He's like a birth date wise. He's got that advantage. But I've seen him get not picked on, but like where he didn't really seem to want to engage, and the other kid was freaking giving him the business a little bit, and you're just sitting there like oh my God, we just fucking like push him out of the way, or just fucking stand up for yourself, like don't let that kid freaking kick you around. Like being a parent, I think there's things like that, like watching them struggle in sports is one. Watching them make stupid mistakes in school is one, where it's just like, you fucking idiot. Like, what you fucking try there? Like, just how, like, watching him play soccer, like, and he trips over the ball, you're just like, this fucking kid is so clumsy. But, like, those are things being as a parent that are interesting. But one of them you and I have talked about is this idea of, we want them to have that masculine confidence, traditional masculine confidence, and be able to assert themselves and stand up as if being the alpha through eye contact, right? We had the eye contact conversation, right? I tried to get him into jiu-jitsu, and it's funny, it's probably a mix-up between myself and my ex and what we were going through, and that was probably one of the main reasons why it didn't work out. But he would go and be, when he did get the opportunity to grapple, he was always better than the other kids. Always. And I really wish he wouldn't be there for weeks. And then some kid would try and do a move on him, and he'd just freaking get him in side control, and like he just had it naturally. Yeah. So I'm a little disappointed he's not in it.
He's only 9. He can go back.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say, it is not the end all be all.
Well, that's another part of being a parent, though, is you see them start going down these roads, and like I don't want to call myself out, but like, I always say, like, I don't care what he does. It's so fucking not true.
We're lying.
You definitely care.
Liar.
It's not true.
No, I do it too. Like my oldest will be the better fighter of my sons, but he goes through those phases where like he doesn't go to the gym for a month. Whereas he used to beg, right? Every day I want to go. But so I say that too. Like we're not going to force him. We're not going to make him. We don't care. I definitely care, 100%. I don't force him. I don't because I know he'll revolt, right? If I make him go. But I 100% care for 2 reasons. One, it's good for him, and 2, because he's so good at it. Like you can't stop doing this. You're talented. Like you're very good at it. You have to do this. Now, whether or not you become a fighter is one thing, but like you have to at least pursue this until you decide you don't want to do it anymore because he's too good not to. But I definitely care, 100%.
Right,
definitely care.
How as a fighter do you manage fighting with your kids? Like the concept of what happens in everyday life. Then they see dad, because I think my kids don't see me. They've gone to. I did Krav with my younger son. But still, it's different than if you see dad in the ring smashing someone. And then dad's like...
In which case, he was literally smashing people.
Right.
And then not just grappling in the gym.
No, but seriously, I think
on the floor, kicking the shit out of some guy.
I think that there's this dichotomy there of trying to manage a young kid who doesn't understand the gray in life yet. Like, no, you can't just punch him in the face. He'd be like, motherfucker.
Yeah, you do it. Yeah. It's good. Like, I think... part of it, what makes it easier is my kids have grown up around it. Right? Like I said, they were 7 and 9 when they started. They've been in our gym since then, right? So it's been 5 years. So they know the difference between training and fighting in, a fight in the street and a fight that's sanctioned by a, governing body or whatever. They understand that. But we talk to the boys all the time about it. So we tell them flat out, you don't tell people you do this. You don't discuss it. You don't like brag about it to your friends or whatever. It said because one of 2 things is going to happen. One, you're going to get this reputation as some dude who thinks he's tough. Or 2, some kids now they all want to try you. Like, oh, you think you're tough? You do this. We want to fight you. So we're not doing that. Great point. Just you make yourself look stupid. So I know they can protect themselves, which is great. But they will, and I think that's part of the great thing about doing the sport is that you realize like you don't need to go start fights with people. We all know this growing up. Like the loud kids are usually the kids who can't fight, right? And the kids who act like they're tough. My boys are both very quiet and unassuming. Especially my younger one. So what's going to happen to him is someone is going to try him eventually because as a boy growing up, it's what happens. And he doesn't say boo, and he's going to end up strangling them. And then be like, what the hell, this skinny little kid just strangled me, whatever. Right. But I'd rather have it that way than him walking around like he's some big tough guy.
Absolutely.
But they know. They've grown up. But the other thing is it humbles you, right? So they go to the gym, and they've been around real fighters. Like, not me. Like, I'm just their dad who's not very good at this but enjoys it. But they go to a gym that has guys who've been in the UFC, who was like their first assistant coach was undefeated, 15-0, 3-0 in the UFC before he decided he just didn't really want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So they know what a real tough guy looks like, right? So they know the difference. They're not out there talking shit or starting fights with people or any of that stuff, but they know damn well they're in trouble if someone hits them and they don't hit them back. Like you don't come home and say, "Hey, this kid hit me at school," and well, did you hit him? No, like that doesn't fly,
right?
And I'll deal with the school. I'll deal with you getting in trouble, which is a ridiculous rule in schools, by the way. That if some kid hits you, you get the same punishment if you hit him back, which is insane to me. But that's a separate issue.
Yeah, I mean,
but I tell them flat out, like, no way. If some kid punches you, you damn well better hit him back.
And I think they want more of they want more of the acknowledgement of, hey, listen, if you get in trouble there, it won't be here. And I think that empowers them. The biggest thing is, what's interesting that you said is you're in a unique situation because your kids are going to the gym. So they're getting that. While any sort of martial arts is very masculine, most good gyms, there's some that don't do this, but most good gyms do a great job of teaching the humbleness behind it. And you usually get humble. I mean, I go when I'm going steadily, I'm going once a week. So you know what that means? I'm just maintaining the little bit of skill I have, and that's all that's happening, right? Like, we're not getting markedly better. We're just maintaining, and maybe we get incrementally better, and then we take a month off, and then we're back. But so most of the times, I'll look at people, and I'll look at them, and I'll be like, physically, I'm like, oh, I'll handle this kid. And it never goes that way. Never goes that way. And so it's so humbling from that standpoint of thinking, so the art of doing it kind of humbles you. Like, you can't look at someone and think that because I this or that, you have no idea what they are. Because that's what's great about it. You look around, and the guys that are the best are not the ones. Some of them, you're like, oh, that guy's going to smash everyone. And they do. But a lot of times, the guys that are best don't look like they'll be the best.
And after the kids have been taken down, they can't just like click a button on their controller and report the person for hacking.
Right.
Which is what my kid does every time he loses in Fortnite. Hacker report. Report. I'm like, why are you reporting that kid because he's a hacker?
Yeah.
Because you lost?
Yeah. Nothing humbles you like getting strangled by a 120-pound woman. And it's my favorite. Like, so the assistant coach at my gym is a female black belt who weighs about 120 pounds. And she can absolutely destroy me in grappling. And then my favorite thing, though, is when new guys come in who weigh 250 pounds and they go with her, and I just sit in the corner and just enjoy it. It's hilarious. Like,
Peter Jeffrey's wife, same thing. Yeah, she's 120 pounds.
Pete's not a big guy. He's not a big guy either. Yeah.
No, but
I roll with him.
When he puts his weight on you,
it feels like he's 300 pounds.
He did some cage stuff with us once, and my partner Peter, Peter's like just about 6 feet. He's a big kid. He's probably 220. The other Peter. The Peter is like a $145, $150.
Yeah, he's not a big guy.
And when he presses against you, like on the cage, you're like, I couldn't move him.
Yep.
I'm like, you feel like you weigh 300, but he knows how to. But his wife tools on me all the time. I can't do anything on her. She's same thing, 120 pounds, brown belt. Makes me look stupid all the time. We'll purposely do. I'll do something dumb that a novice will do, and she'll just do the thing that embarrasses me to make it clear what I'm doing is not what you should do. She'll be like, "See, don't do that."
Just lead you into traps. Yeah, but it's the same for my boys. They started out right. They were the new kids.
Yeah,
they get beat up. Not really beat up. The coach doesn't let the kids get beat up, but they were bad. They get destroyed by all the kids who've been there for a while who were good. Then they slowly became the kids who are older and more experienced, and they teach the new kids or whatever. But that's just what it is. They know what it's like to be the worst kid in the class.
Right. Right. Whereas Keith, by the way, Keith Jeffries is a fucking monster. He's like Drago.
Yeah.
He's a beast.
Yeah.
So how do you? So I mean, I know the answer to this, but like, you're not.
Of course you do.
You're not a full-time fighter.
I'm not a full-time fighter. No.
So. What do you do? I mean, I know the answer to this.
Yeah, I'll answer it anyway. Well, Brendon, I coach soccer full time. I used to coach soccer full time with Pat.
That's freaking nuts. Who coaches soccer full time?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Many years of club soccer full time, and now college and club soccer together. So I'm always on my feet. I guess it keeps me in relatively. I don't play anymore, but it keeps me somewhat fit. I
mean, I know what not playing soccer looks like because I do
limping.
that a lot. Yeah, but
where do you coach?
Springfield College, and
Awesome.
then I coach club now with Seacoast United, which is based in New Hampshire, but the Massachusetts branch.
Seacoast has their own facility.
They do up in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
I-
we train in Weymouth with the Mass kids, but
Yep.
New Hampshire's the big portion of the club, the original part. But yeah.
Yeah.
So the big question then is, how do you? Because this is the general. And you were involved in this to a certain extent. I know you grew up in athletics. Your father was a coach too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the general way this usually works is like you get involved in this right out of college because you're not good enough to be a professional player. So you start coaching, you start making a little bit of money. In our case, when I became a full-time youth soccer coach, I was making more money than I was at my full-time terrible job I got out of college, right? So it's like a little bit attractive, and then you think it's a hack. You're like, oh, I get to freaking do this for a living. Mm-hmm. Like, oh my fucking God. Like I've beat life, right? But then you meet somebody who is like, oh, what do you do? And this is what you do. And they're like, oh.
Sounds like you're
how does that
telling
work?
a personal story, Patrick.
How does that work?
You have very strong emotional ties.
It's a personal story, but like Brendon and I could probably tell you that if we really started thinking about it, we'd probably rattle off 100 names of dudes where this happens, where it's like, once you meet the significant other, it's like, what happened to that guy? I don't see him at the fields anymore. It's like, oh, he had to get a real job.
Yeah, his wife wasn't having it.
Yeah, and usually it's not necessarily 100% the money, because when you get to a certain level, you would never be embarrassed to talk about the amount of money you make, because there'd probably be someone in the room making less than you,
right,
who hated their job.
Yeah.
But you would never say like, oh man, like I don't make that much money, because like you don't make as much as some people we know, but it's not an embarrassing amount. But the challenge is that your schedule is weird.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like, so when Pat and I lived together in our 20s before we were married, it was the dream job, right? So,
of course.
Like, we're flying to San Diego this week and we don't have to pay for it. This is
Yeah,
unbelievable.
right, yeah.
And you're paying me to go? Like, this is awesome, right? But yeah, so I'm fortunate. My wife actually used to own a dance studio. So
he does have a wife.
Yeah,
she did stick around.
I do have a wife. For now, she's probably fed up with me, but she...
How long have you been married?
15 years. Yeah, it's been,
congratulations.
It's been a while.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Pat was in the wedding. So he had a good time at the wedding. It was great.
I can tell there's a story that you want to tell. Maybe
had a good time the night before the wedding too.
His eyes are like, what story
I
are you
think
going
the
to
night
tell?
before actually had a better. I can't remember.
He did, but here's why he had a miserable morning of the wedding is because we had an indoor soccer game with kids that we coached. It wasn't his team, it was my team. We worked with all the same kids, and I made him wake up from the hotel because he shared the room with me the night before the wedding. I made him come with me to coach the game in the morning that I got
The morning
married.
of your wedding?
Correct.
This is like one of those things that people who don't understand.
Yeah, right.
This is usually the significant other is like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But here's the deal. My wife had to like get her hair done, right? Do all the stuff, do
Yeah.
all the things. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to sit in this hotel for like 8 hours and do
Yeah.
nothing.
Right,
So, and a bunch of the
Might as
parents.
well coach my 8-year-old girls team.
And a bunch of the parents who had kids playing in that game were actually going to the wedding. So when he and I showed up, they're like, why are you guys here? I was like, oh, we're just bored and nothing else to do. He was struggling. But anyway, so yes, I am married. My wife owned a dance studio at the time, so she was in sort of a similar sort of schedule situation.
Yeah.
So she got it. She understood it. But then once we started to have kids, it became a little bit more difficult, right? So she's working after school hours. I'm working after school hours. It was a nightmare. Like, how are we going to deal with the kids? Who's bringing them? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? So she eventually sold her studio, which was, a sacrifice for me to keep doing what I was doing. But she was a little burnt out, so it worked out.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm fortunate in that she's supportive of me doing it. I'm never going to be a millionaire, like Pat said, but it's enough for us to support our family and everything else. And she has a good job too. So, but it is schedule-wise, it's difficult. Like coaching in Springfield and living in Eastern Mass is not the easiest of things in the world.
I was going to ask you about that.
I mean, it works out because in the winter and spring I don't have to be there every day, but in the fall it's a little bit tough. So I think I didn't see my kids very often in the fall. On the weekends I would a little bit, like Sundays I'd see them, and Fridays sometimes. So that's a little bit hard, but it's the life I chose. It's just what I do. But now, in a way, it's a bit better now. The kids are a little bit older. So my middle son, I coach his team too. So whenever they travel, I'm with him. So that's a little bit better. And my wife then isn't stuck having to get him because she knows I'll be there and I can take him wherever he's going. But it's an interesting life choice. Now the college part, the real reason that I switched over and started focusing on that is because I don't have to pay for my kids to go to school.
Right.
So that was the real benefit of it. Is even I took a minor little pay cut, but now when they get to college, they can go for free.
Right.
So that's, it's a
Yep.
trade-off, but.
I mean, just to give you a hint about how this lifestyle is, when my ex had bail, it was a Friday night into Saturday was the birth. And so Saturday you're at the hospital all day, and Sunday we had club soccer games. And we had to stay. And I was like, do you mind if I go?
Same. I did the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, that was just the light. That's just you have to have a certain type of person. The partner has to be a certain type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like we're all the same thing. Like, I think that guy has a real job. Like, I think he's done. I think he has a real job. I mean, there's so many people we know.
That's funny.
Who just end up having a real job.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you stick with it and stay in the same place for long enough, you eventually, can make a pretty decent living. But yeah, it's more of a hustle, right? So like I do this, I do college, I do the club, run my own private training business, so I make money doing that in the summer and all that stuff. So yeah, it's more hustling.
Very entrepreneurial.
But I also
right,
exactly, and I never hate going to work. Right. That's the real, I worked.
Except when he's texting me saying all these people are.
Well, yeah.
These players are all not that great, and the guys I'm working with.
Yeah, certain parents can make it miserable, but I've been fortunate.
Oh,
for
we
the
all
most
know
part.
from coaching that.
And anybody who's listening to this is like, Brendon's talking shit. This is just this is just what he does. Everyone knows Brendon's talking shit.
No, it's some of the parents can make it a little bit tough, but I worked, I did internships at, Fidelity in college, and that's when I knew I could never do this.
Yeah.
I could not do this for a job. Yeah. Absolutely not. It's just, so the quality of life, I feel like from a stress standpoint, is a little bit better, but like everyone else, you worry about all the other things. So. And
then you also, like, the real reason I brought that up is now you've added, I don't know how often you have to train. But like now you're freaking driving all over the place, flying places for tournaments, and then you're training to be an MMA amateur fighter. So it's interesting.
When you say, can I just
jump
go ahead,
of course.
Before you say this?
Yeah.
Because when you say the word amateur, I think it takes away the training.
Can we just call him the legend again? Local
because,
MMA legend.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's still one. It's
I
still
didn't do that to talk it down. By the way,
I know.
I did it more to almost like put people in the bucket of like.
I think amateur,
he's doing this for the fucking love,
right? Like saying that I don't get paid to do it.
But
Right,
he's a good dad,
exactly.
and so like I'm just wondering how he handles it.
Yeah, it's that was the part. I've thanked my family for this a million times. That was the toughest part. And I said to the real fighters, I don't know how they do it, especially the ones with families, like how they do that like 4 times a year, like a full fight camp and all that stuff. I have absolutely no idea. So it is hard. Like in the fall, this fall, I barely trained. I didn't really go to the gym because I was so busy with soccer. But then when I was getting ready for this fight, I'm like, shoot, I got to get in and do as much as I can. So I would say at least 5 days a week I get some sort of training in. But even now it's difficult. Like I'm trying. Like yesterday, I couldn't go to class because I had soccer, in Springfield last night. So I had to go in. Thankfully, one of my training partners, a super nice guy, met me during the day, so we trained in the morning, right? And then I went out to practice. And then today, nothing today, but I'll get to train tonight. Friday, I have work, so I can't go. So Friday morning, a different guy's going to come meet me and do that. So thankfully, I have good training partners to help me. But my family understands. Like when I train during the day, it's great because everyone's in school and at work. It's not the end of the world. But most of the classes at our gym are at night, so that makes it a little bit tough. So again, I will give my wife credit. She's supportive of it. She knows, like, okay, I went to work. I got to go straight to the gym and do class because that's when class is, and I got to stay and do cardio and do all that stuff. And she gets it, and she's home, and she'll feed the kids and get them ready for school tomorrow and all that stuff. So if I was doing it on my own, I don't think I could do it. But thankfully, they're and the kids are old enough now that they're not like if they were 2, it's a little bit tough to try and to deal with it. But they barely talk to us.
Have they ever said anything like because? We've had this conversation before. I don't even know where we're at in the time. But like we've had this conversation before where it's like you like, especially with working remotely, right? Working remotely, I feel like
down, you can get down. She's like, I'll fight you right now. You want to fight?
You think you're tough?
Yeah.
I heard you train.
You ever get bitten in the face?
Exactly. You ever dealt with me? So like we've talked about this before, where it's like when I'm working remotely. And my boy is to be home, like whether it's summer, school break, or whether he's sick, and I feel like I'm ignoring him. And sometimes he'll say something. Yeah. Right? Or I think I gave this story before where I've got an only child on the little soccer team I coach now, and his dad just seems like super dad to me. But like the one time I heard the kid talk about him, he's like, "Oh, my dad's always on the phone." I'm like, "Your freaking dad is at everything. Like he is like out there kicking the ball with you, whatever." But like the kid perceives it as he doesn't know. He has no idea what other dads are like. He just knows. Have your kids ever expressed to you at all, like anything, like, no. Dad, like, where are you going to be? Like, or
my daughter misses me sometimes, but never for stuff like this, never for work and training. It's more when I'm away, like if I go away for a weekend or something. But it's even less now. When they were little, they're like, oh, where are you going? Can I go? And all this stuff. But now, like my 14-year-old, as you have a 14, anyone who has a 14-year-old knows that they don't want to even talk to us.
Yeah.
I think deep
Worst
down, he loves mom and dad, but he doesn't really want to be around us. And now I feel like it happens at 12. So like my 14-year-old up until 12 was attached to me, didn't want to leave me. He wanted to do everything I did. He wanted to do. Right at 12 and a half-ish, he's like, want nothing to do with me. Now my next one, same thing, like kindest, most loving, wonderful human. He's 12 and a half now. He's like, leave me alone. What the heck? I thought you were going to be the one. My daughter's just turned 11. She's still, mom and dad are great, blah, blah, blah. So I'm hoping she doesn't have that happen. But no, like, I'm sure they miss me when I'm gone for a long time. But when I'm just at the gym, whatever. And the good part, too, though, is like on a Thursday, if I go, kids' class is right before mine. So I can bring them.
Yeah.
The boys go.
Yeah.
We can do it together. My oldest is like sort of beyond kids class now, but he stays and does adult class. He does kickboxing with the adults, right? So it's something that we can bond over. So yeah, the fact that they train, I think, makes it a little bit easier for them to understand.
Right.
My daughter doesn't, but I wish she did. It's okay.
I didn't do that to make you feel guilty.
No.
It's something we talk about.
I feel guilty about other things.
Have,
yeah, absolutely.
We talk about that stuff. And then the one thing that Brian, I don't think we talked about this, you and I did, but one of the reasons we have this podcast, because Brian actually wrote a book on fatherhood. And one of his chapters, operations. One of the operations is, because he was in the military, is meet them where they're at. So we talk a lot about, I think the fact that you do the fighting with your boys would be an example of that. Like for me,
I think the ultimate meaning with that is that they were doing it first.
Yeah.
And now he's doing it, on stage.
Well, that's
really
also
cool.
why they're
really
utterly
cool.
unimpressed too. Like people are like, oh, what do your kids think? I'm like, they don't care.
Right.
They're just like, whatever.
They dragged me to this.
My first fight is my favorite. I got sent a million videos, right, with people in the crowd.
Yeah, of course.
So my favorite one is my buddy from the gym was filming it, and he's had a few drinks and enjoying himself. And 10 seconds into the fight, the guy throws this kind of lame kick at me. You hear my son right next to him go, oh, this guy sucks. So there's zero credit, believe me. Like my son's like, I would beat that guy up. And I say, you're not wrong. But yeah, I think they like that I do it, but they are by no means impressed.
Right, because it's the world they live in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're used to it. Yeah. And again, they've seen the guys who are really good at this, right? So they're just like, yeah, Dad, you're some scrub. I get it. It's fine. It's Dad's midlife crisis.
Awesome.
It's okay.
It's awesome. Yeah. Somebody wants a lot of it.
Good stuff. All right, so tell us a little bit quickly. I mean, one thing we haven't talked about, the podcast is running a little long. One of the things we haven't talked about is Tim.
Yeah,
so talk about your cause, talk about what you're...
Tim's an amazing guy. So Pat actually has known Tim longer than me. They grew up in the same town. But I worked with Tim from 2013 to 2019. Tim
Blinten.
Yes, Tim Blinten, sorry. King Philip guy, works for FC Stars soccer club. So Tim had a stroke on the sideline almost exactly 4 years ago now. He has 4 young kids of his own. He has a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and twin 2-year-olds, I want to say.
So it probably would have been like 34?
Yeah, like mid-30s. Yeah, mid-30s when he had it. So thankfully, due to the response of our other friends who are coaches with Tim, he survived and everything else. But as you can imagine, the rehab is a long, arduous process. He still has limited movement in his arms and his hands, and he struggles to just manipulate objects and things like that. So he's going through all that stuff. So that's and anyone who knows Tim knows he's like a big teddy bear. He's the nicest guy in the world.
He's like super freaking.
Oh my god, like always smiling,
non-confrontational, friendly,
like the best guy ever. So like I said, the last one I did for a cause, I'm trying to think of one for this one. I'm like, oh, Tim, perfect. And he puts these videos online, and they're both inspiring and heartbreaking. So it's like, I'm so inspired, like, oh my God, look how hard he's working. But then I'm like, my God, this poor guy, he's got 4 little kids, and he's trying to work a spatula, right, in his rehab and just do this stuff. I'm like, my God, the amount of concentration and effort it takes just for him to do that, right? And like just the toughness of that to me is so impressive. So all the ticket sales that I get, I don't get all the money from it, but the percentage that I get will go to Tim and his family. T-shirt sales will go to Tim and his family. So how much that ends up being, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the more tickets I sell, the more T-shirts I sell, the more money I get, the more money I give to Tim. And the only thing I use any of the money for is to cover my expenses, like medical expenses going in and stuff like that, which do become actually more expensive than you think. But that gets covered usually by sponsorships and some of the T-shirt sales, and then everything else just goes right to Tim. So
is there? I'm sure there's a way people can donate to this.
Yeah, so the straight donations usually I just take via Venmo. Like, so if anyone wants to reach out to you guys or me, I can give them that.
Yeah, we'll put it in the
and
description.
then anyone who wants to go and buy a ticket, by all means, don't buy them online. Get them from me, because that's the only way I get the money from it. If you buy them online, it just goes to the promotion.
Right.
Yeah. Our international audience will be sending out packages to hotel.
Please do. Yeah, absolutely. I will say this though, even if you're not super into MMA, and you guys know this because you've been there, it's so fun. Like every person who goes fantastic. Is like, this is unbelievable. I actually enjoy the local fights more than the big like UFC events, just because you're closer and they're more action packed sometimes. Like it's strange to say, because you would think the skill isn't as good, obviously, as the UFC, but it's just everyone gets after it, right? And everyone wants to, get in there and really put on a good show. So if you want to buy a ticket, do that. That'll go to Tim.
Yep.
Just reach out to me.
We'll have the description in the bio.
I think one of the things about fighting, and maybe it's different from sports. Like if you watch, like I can't watch. There's people in this country who watch like high school football and are just like in the South or whatever, and they're freaking just really into it.
Yeah.
Like for whatever reason, fighting and maybe it's because I don't know what I'm looking at. Maybe that's why. Like if you see two dudes who are evenly matched, it almost doesn't matter what level they are. You're just watching a freaking brawl.
Right.
It's like, because you see two dudes evenly matched at like the top level, they're not going to be as skillful because they're so out matching each other to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes those fights, you have to be able to really pick up the nuances of advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you'd be like, all right. And if you can't, then it can almost be boring. It's not boring, but it can be boring.
But it speaks to the point where you go to see these local fights, and if it's an evenly matched fight,
they're great,
and they're just two kids getting after it. Yeah, and they put on a show too, the Cage Titans organization.
Yeah, the promotion's amazing. As far as anyone who's been to local MMA is probably used to, like, you go into a ballroom, it's one level, right, and it's kind of like I can kind of see what I can't really see, and the production is very minimal, right? Cage Titans puts on like a proper
it's
show.
awesome.
And it's awesome. Like you said, the seating is amazing.
A great time.
It makes 2,000 people feel like 10,000 people. It's so loud. But that's like, for the people who don't like fighting, I say this all the time. If you want to buy a ticket to donate to someone, because you can't go, but you want to buy a ticket, like Tim still gets that money. Someone gets a free ticket that I just say, oh, you couldn't afford to go, here, take this ticket. And you can do that too.
Awesome.
And
March 30th.
March 30th.
Who's the opponent?
Some guy, his name's Gary. Seems like a nice enough.
This is local MMA. It's like,
he's from New Jersey.
Who's the opponent? Brendon Boates versus Gary.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Gary from New Jersey.
It's like when we used to watch Saturday morning wrestling and be like, Jimmy Superfly Snuka versus Todd Smith.
Yeah, exactly. But he is from New Jersey. I don't know much about. He's a little bit bigger than me. Like his last fight was at 170, and mine was at 45. So we're kind of meeting in the middle at 160. But it's fine. But he's a little bit taller. I don't know too much. I think he's 0-1. I don't know, but I've texted back and forth with him a little bit while we were setting the fight up. Seems like a really nice fella. Like, seems like a pretty.
That's
good
not
guy.
really what we want to hear.
I like that. I don't get, the last guy I fought was actually a really nice kid too. He and I actually messaged back and forth sometimes. He said, "Oh, I want to come up to train with you guys." He's from New York, but I was like, "Anytime, whatever." But now he was supposed to fight one of my teammates, but it never happened. But he's a really nice guy. The first two guys I fought were clowns. Like they deserve to get beat up. This is more of just a sporting kind of like friendly. Like we're gonna try and kill each other, and then we'll shake hands and hug and do all that stuff. But Gary seems like a nice guy.
Love it.
Seems okay.
That's what I think a lot of people don't understand that about fighting. Like, it's not always a complete hatred.
Oh, for sure.
It's sport, and you go into it as what
usually
it is.
It's pretty cordial. Like sometimes, actually, the night you went, the best fight of that night was the amateur title fight. So right before intermission. That
was unbelievable.
So Brody and Ozzy, love both those guys, and I've trained with Brody at his gym, and my son's come up with me too. So they beat the hell out of each other.
Yes,
right?
Yes, it was unbelievable.
Since then, Ozzy has now gone. He trains with Brody at their gym. So like his last fight, so Brody went pro. Ozzy fought for the amateur title again in January, won it. His cornermen were legitimately the guys who were cornering against him in the fight before. So it's not like there are some who don't like each other.
Of course,
and don't get along.
that's anywhere.
But you'd be surprised like how often it's just like, hey man, cool, that's great. Have some fun, and then we'll go drink a beer together.
Well, how can you not? Especially a fight like the fight he's talking about, you can't not look at the other person and be like, I can't believe you just withstood that. And then he's looking at you thinking, I can't believe you just withstood that.
It was like back in the day.
They smashed each other.
The first UFC was Forrest Griffin and
on The Ultimate Fighter, Alex fought that night,
that first reality series.
Yeah, they beat the hell out of each other.
And actually, going back to like, I don't want to keep extending things, but like the first time we saw our friend fight before he went pro. The first time I saw him was at the fucking Avalon. That was not as impressive. That was not as impressive as Cage Titans.
That's what local MMA used to be. It was, and there was like a threat of violence every time you walked in. It was like who's getting stabbed.
It was who you thought was going to that was there.
Exactly. Whereas now it's like families, right? And like like my kids go all the time in people's families, and they enjoy it.
It's a normalized sport.
Yeah. Well, so now they start, and I think they did it the night that you were there, and I can't remember if they did it the night that you went to my other one. So they start every event with a kids grappling match. So the kids go into the cage. And
I don't think I don't.
So
we saw that.
It legitimately starts with like 2 8-year-olds, and they're just grappling stuff.
Awesome.
So my son actually has that honor. He and one of his training partners, whose dad is actually the DJ for Cage Titans. Before I ever got anywhere near that cage, my son was 10, I think his buddy was 9. They went in and did a grappling match in that cage before I ever got anywhere near it. So he's got that over me too.
They're laughing at you.
Yeah.
Good stuff. This was a good one.
Wrap it up?
Yeah, absolutely. This was great. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Good luck on mine. We'll be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can watch the fight too. You can stream it.
Yeah, if you can't go live, we'll send that link out too.
But never mind that. Buy the tickets.
Buy
tickets will be in the link.
Yeah.
Buy the tickets. Support the cause. And come to the fight. It's a great time.
I will drop the tickets off to you. I literally drive around.
He does. He drives around and gives all the tickets.
I will have them in my hands tomorrow. So if you want to reach out, and I'll get them to you.
And it is a little like, I mean, you felt that way, right? After watching the 47-year-old, 46-year-old at the time, or 45-year-old at the time, in there fighting.
Maybe I listened to Rocky the whole way home. I don't know.
No,
it's
it was 46.
an hour and a half.
I had turned 46.
It's an hour and a half drive. What the fuck am I doing in my life?
Over and over again.
Why am I not strong enough to do something like that?
My buddy who drove up with me, he's like, "Can we change the song?" I'm like, "Fuck no."
They have this you go there and like, because I'm sitting with Brendon. Brendon's nice enough to hang out with me for a minute, but like
I always come out after.
All the people from the he's freaking like not just shake, like literally sat next to me. We watched a couple fights, but like he's got this whole community.
Yeah, of course.
The dudes that he trains with and the other people from the other gyms that they know, and that's all. Like it's very like. It does make you kind of feel like you wish I did something like that.